So the Weather Channel saying I got a pretty big storm system coming on the way over here, but I don't know. Maybe it'll fizzle out before it gets here. It says it's supposed to be here in about an hour, but it's already pretty the rain is pretty intense, and it's still an hour away. So the storm it may fizzle out before it gets over here, but I'm not gonna put more feed out for the animals until after the storm has passed, because I don't want to put a bunch of food out for these animals and then have it get rained on. This is still the food from last night. You can still still see that there's food in the bins, and I don't want to have a bunch of food that I got to throw away. And so I figured I would feed the animals after the rain has passed, or after the chance of rain has passed. And so, okay, this morning I was actually thinking about this, and I was taking a look at my whole situation, and with everything that I got going on right now, if I used $1 million, right? If I used $1 million as a reference point, and we just talked about the idea of $1 million, and how fast can I make $1 million, right? $1 million cash. All right, not an opinion, but how fast could I make $1 million? If I was legitimately going to go and make $1 million today in the cattle business, how fast could I do it? And just to use $1 million as a gauge, as of today, it would take me about 2.5 years to make about $1 million. All right. It would take me about 2.5 years to make $1 million. All right. And, but realistically, what's actually going to happen is that I will take the money that I make and I will reinvest it into my business, and then I will grow my business. And in all honesty, maybe it takes me about a year, and maybe it takes me about a year and 3 months to make about $1 million. All right. And so that's effectively, I was thinking about this, how fast could I make $1 million? How fast could I make $1 million? And I was thinking about maybe, challenging myself, right? I was thinking about maybe challenging myself. If I think that I can make $1 million in 2 years, why not do it in a year, right? If I think that if I think that I can make $1 million in a year, why not do it in 6 months? Right, I was thinking, I was sitting there and I was like, I should challenge myself. I should really push myself, right? I should, I'm looking to challenge myself. I'm looking to do things, improve my situation, taking objective metrics, right? I talk about objective metrics, and I like using money as one of my objective metrics, because money is not an opinion. Nobody cares about an opinion. Money is a finite thing, and in terms of money is not like, I've always talked about this. Money's not like power, okay? Money's not power. Money's not freedom. Money is practically negligible. Money is, this is one of the things that I have seen with my life, and and I think that this is something that is not talked about a lot. Actually, I actually don't even know anybody else that really speaks about this other than me. But money is honestly negligible, because when you take a look at my situation, when you take a look at what I do, right? And I've already spoken about this. I would bet that I make substantially more than 30 grand in the next 30 days. I will make substantially more than $30,000, right? And how much money have I spent on my business in the last month and a half? Right? Less than $500. All right, this feed, I didn't buy any more feed. This feed is the feed that I bought 2 months ago. I bought this feed a month and a half ago, right? I haven't bought any more feed. Right? I've spent less than $1,000. Right? And in the next 30 days, I will make substantially more than 30 grand. I just take the $1,000 out of the $45,000 that I make, and I just pay for whatever I need. Right? That's the whole idea, right? The whole idea of utilizing capital to make more capital. And when you do this properly, the amount of money that it takes to make money is negligible. Because what does it matter? If you have money and you go and you purchase yourself an asset, and you purchase this asset and it's a good asset, you have a reasonable idea for producing a positive return with this asset, right? And you are purchasing this asset at its appraisal value, then what does it matter? It doesn't. Right? You are trading your money for an asset that is equally as valuable as the asset. All right? And and that's the whole idea, right? But honest to God, I don't know how else to put it. It is what it is. I'm giving you my numbers, right? I am giving you my numbers, right? I show you how I do all of this. Like me, when I purchase cattle, when I grow my cattle herd, how do I grow my cattle herd, right? I leverage against the equity, or I take the money that I make from the business and I reinvest it. That's how I grow my herd, right? And in all honesty, in the next 3 months, if I just took the money that I made from the business and reinvested it back into my business, I would have effectively grew my herd by over 20% a month, compounding. And another way to take a look at this is when you take a look at my numbers, my real life numbers, right? And I've always said, don't ask people who don't know what they're doing. And if they know what they're doing, they'll actually be doing it. Because if you ask people who don't know what they're doing how you should do something, how would they know? And they're probably going to even tell you the wrong thing. My life is a magical journey and I fell out of heaven at 7. That's how you do it, right? They'll tell you stuff like that. But like if you asked me, I would just flat out tell you exactly how to do it. Take a look at the commodity market. That is the price for a feeder cattle animal. What you're talking about is a number 1 type animal. That's a beef animal. In my local area, there are these major beef breeds. When I go to the sale barn, I don't purchase straight number 1 type animals. I purchase number 1 and number 1.5. All right, and in terms of a realistic sense, in terms of how I run my business, I take that feeder cattle number, I take a 10% deduction to account for the fact that I will also be purchasing heifers and number 1.5 type animals. I take a 10% deduction off the feeder cattle price, and then I cut that number in half to give myself a margin. I take that number, I go to the sale barn, and what I'm looking for is a number 1 to 1.5 type medium large frame steers, bulls, and heifers, and usually I will be purchasing these animals between 200 and 250 pounds. Right, I will tell you exactly how I do it. Right, I mean, this is not, my life is a magical journey and I'm going on a trip to Disneyland because I fell out of heaven at 7, right? I will legitimately tell you exactly word for word how I run my business. That's the big benefit. Like if you actually go and you find somebody who knows what they're doing and you ask them, that's how I guess that's what the shortcut is. But there is no shortcut. At the end of the day, you're going to have to go and do it for yourself. And just to put things into consideration, a lot of people, right? And, a lot of people, when it comes to farming, and oh my God, I had to work 15 hours today. And I had to go out in the field and I had to work for 15 hours. And it was so hard, oh my God. I barely made any money. I legitimately did that for 12 years straight. Making barely any money, if nothing at all. Working 7 days a week. All right? Yeah, I guarantee it. Like when you take a look at what I'm doing, you have to understand that in terms of a broader idea, in terms of a broader picture, I legitimately did better than the commercial average on a backyard by myself. All right, but most people, that's what it turns into. Oh my God, I'm just farming because it's my dream. I had to work for 15 hours, during harvest season. I had to work for 15 hours to pull vegetables off of this field. And it was so hard and I barely made any money. I legitimately did that for 12 years. Barely made any money. I legitimately, I'm not lying. I'm legitimately telling you the truth. I legitimately did not start getting paid until my 12th year. All right, I legitimately managed to make more money on this backyard by myself than anybody on the planet makes doing just about anything, and it is by a massive margin. All right, I don't know how else to put it. You want to know what it was like to go and run hundreds of cattle a year by yourself, start yourself a cattle business, and you want to know what that was like? Then go and do it. Then you'll understand. All right, because my whole thing about it is, like, if you legitimately suck, like you legitimately suck so bad it's kind of pathetic, and you're talking trash, whatever, then that's borderline. I mean, how did you end up becoming like legitimately an idiot? How did that happen? It's not like you're even useful, right? How did that even happen? Like you could have, like I don't know how else to put it. Like, you're legitimately not going to do 10% if you live to be 5,000 at the rate you're going. All right, you have to get it together. All right, this is not some Disneyland journey. All right, if you don't go out and you don't actually start learning how to do this stuff, and you don't start, then you're never going to make it. All right, farming is not something that is just like, oh my God, I'm going to go into farming because it's easy and I can make some money. You're legitimately not going to make any money. All right, I don't know how else to put you. Like, you're not going to make any money, and you're going to get wrecked. You're not going to be able to do anything because the work is very difficult, and then you'll fail. All right, but that's also why I, like when I present my idea of systematically learning how to farm. Right, when I present my idea, I present it in a practical business sense as well, because you have to understand that you will fail. All right, there is no skipping that part. You will fail, but you don't want to put yourself in a situation where when you fail, you bankrupt. All right, because the whole thing about like the business plan like that I have made, and I give you my business plan, and this was more or less how I did it. All right, if you go and you buy 1 tonnage of fertilizer, it'll cost you like $600. All right, that 1 tonnage of fertilizer is enough fertilizer to legitimately, I mean, you could grow, enough grass to feed, 10, 15 cattle with that 1 tonnage of fertilizer. You could legitimately feed like 10 or 15 cattle. All right, you could legitimately, with 1 tonnage of fertilizer, and maybe, for you to run 15, 20 cattle, maybe you need 2 tonnages of fertilizer, and then you will have the animals ready at market weight. So that's about 1,000, maybe about 1.5 tonnage, about $1,000. Even if you mess it up, right? Even if you mess it up, and let's say that you put 0.5 tonnage of fertilizer on your field at a time, which would be good, right? I've always spoken about this. You don't have to fertilize your field at the same time. You don't have to fertilize your entire field you can fertilize your field every 2 weeks, granted that the weather conditions are met. Every 2 or 3 weeks, right? You're going to need to have some moisture. And you're going to have to make sure that the cultivar of grass you're growing can even grow in the weather. But even when you mess it up, it won't matter, because you're out, $350, right? It doesn't matter. At least you're learning something, and at least you're going in the right way. Right? Oh my God, well, I'm just going to sit on my hands, and when the grass grows, I'm going to put my animals out on it. You're boned, all right? You're never going to make it. All right, have fun turning into, oh my God, you're never going to make, you're legitimately just going to, be borderline homeless for the rest of your life. All right, that's all. When I talk about fertilizer, how do fertilizers interact with plants, right? And et cetera, et cetera. The environmental conditions required for growing a plant, accumulating biomass. The different stages of growth for plants. Right, when your plants have hit different stages of growth, the feed values of the plant will be different. Right, all of this stuff, objective information. All right, oh my God, well, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to let my grass grow when it rains, and then I'm going to put my cattle on it. Have fun being a bum. All right, have fun being homeless. All right, because you're going to be 1 foot away from being homeless your entire life. Me, when I grow grass, how do I do it? I walk out onto my field, look for broadleaf plants, and then diagnose mineral deficiencies. All right, that's how you do it. And especially if you're going to graze it. Because if you are going to graze it, your animals will be pulling the minerals out of the grass every time they eat it, and the grass will be pulling the minerals out of the field. You will effectively ultimately end up depleting your field. It'll probably take about a year, not even a year, maybe even 3 months. All right, and then you're going to have to replenish those minerals or your grass won't grow, all right? And when I take a look at my financial situation, right? When I take a look at it for what it is, like if I were to just save $1 million, which I'm not, which I'm not going to focus myself on saving $1 million. I've already spoken about this. The whole idea of money is that realistically, I already make enough money to walk off into the sunset. All right, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to sit here and go, oh my God, well, what if I could save $1 million? I don't care. All right. My whole thing about money is that, at the end of the day, if I want it, I can buy it. All right. I don't even have to think about it. I can just buy it. And, granted that it's not something ridiculous or idiotic, I can already buy it. So there's no reason for me to even think about it. All right, there's no reason for me to even, because, and the thing about, me, the whole thing about saving money and, it doesn't matter. All right, like I don't, if I ever enter a situation where I, whatever, but just to put things in perspective, I mean, my balance sheet is so far in the net positive. And, the whole thing about this is like, even if I lost my cattle farm, I could just start myself another one in 3 seconds. Right? It doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. Legitimately, it does not matter. All right. I'm not going to say it does not matter, but I mean, I'm just presenting an idea. Money is negligible to me. All right. And just to put things in perspective, over the next 30 days, I will make substantially more than 30 grand. Over the next 30 days, I will make substantially more than $30,000. And in the last month, I legitimately spent less than $500. This food that the animals are eating is the food that I purchased about a month and a half, 2 months ago, about a month and a half ago. I purchased this food about a month and a half ago. I haven't purchased any more feed in the last month and a half. And I've already spoken about this in terms of a break-even calculation for the feed. Right? In terms of a break-even calculation for the feed, my animals effectively need to eat like less than 23 buckets a day for me to make a substantial profit, right? Or not to make a substantial profit, but for me to effectively just make enough money to where it's enough money to just keep my business going. And then when to keep my business going and put some money in my pocket. And then when the grass starts to grow again, then I will make more money, right? It's effectively just enough to do that, right? It'll make enough money to where it's worth the money, right? The time is worth the money. And then, I can keep the animals on the feed until my grass starts to grow again. And when my grass starts to grow again, I will put my animals on the grass and I will have them on grass and I will make a boatload of money, right? These animals have been on grass until about 5 days ago, right? These animals have effectively all been on grass until about 5 days ago. And I was actually thinking about this yesterday. The whole thing about, the business and what am I going to do during the summer months. I'm actually going to start liquidating animals I may start potentially liquidating animals at a lighter weight. And, I may just go ahead and reduce the size of the animal that I have. If I reduce the size of the animal that I have, then, I can keep my herd numbers higher because each animal will be smaller. But then I also have to consider the fact that, I can only hold so many animals in the preconditioning pen. So, but I'm gonna have to figure it out. I'm gonna see what I'm gonna do, and then I'll keep the whole idea is always keep the preconditioning pens full, right? Like the preconditioning pens right now are full. I got the 14 animals in the front, And that one sick animal, he was actually sleeping by the food bin, and he's actually over there still with the other animals. And so, he's eating and drinking. I did see him drinking water, and he is eating food. He just needs to eat a lot of food. I mean, he was just very sick for very long, and it just made him very thin. But but I may start liquidating my animals at a lighter weight. Like, you see this animal right here. This animal right here is probably about 550, maybe about 500 to 550 pounds. Here in about 3 weeks, she'll probably be closer to about 600. This animal right here is probably closer to about 550. That animal next to him probably closer to 550. And so these animals right here, this is about the average size of animal that I have right now. And the bigger animals, I got some animals already that are already past 650, maybe 650, 700. And so when I put it all together, I mean, the animals are going to weigh, they're going to hit the scales maybe about 10% higher than they did last time. They hit the scale at 610 last time, 615 last time. This time they may hit the scale at about 675. And so 650, 675, about 10% heavier. But that's the whole that's the whole thing about like when you're watching me run my business. All right, when you're watching me run my business, you have to understand that I legitimately make this business that you are looking at legitimately makes me such a drastic amount of money that I can effectively buy anything on the entire planet. That's what you're looking at, and I'm not lying about it. All right, I am legitimately telling you the truth. All right, and just to put things in perspective, if we're not going to talk about it in terms of money, if we're going to talk about it in terms of cattle, talk about it in terms of assets, right? I always say rich people talk about their assets. They do not talk about what, their oh my God, well, worthless things. All right, rich people talk about assets. All right, and I've always, the whole thing, rich people talk about assets. All right, you should be able to communicate information about the asset that you are interested in, or that you are utilizing, or that you are whatever, right? Rich people do this. And if we talk about it in terms of just assets, over the next 3 months, I will be liquidating in all honesty, I will be liquidating all 31 of these animals here in the next 3 months. All right, even that animal over there, kind of small, still about 450 pounds. All right, that's kind of the smallest of the animals. All right, the smallest animals are about that size, and he's about 450 pounds. He will be going to market in 3 months. All right. And so, I'll effectively be liquidating all 31 of these animals in the next 3 months. I got those 14 animals in the front. All right, if I sell these 31 animals, let's say I sell 31 and I end up with 50. Let's just lowball the crap out of myself. Let's say I sell 31 and I end up with 50. Well, then I still have 64 animals, right? I still grew my business by 30% in the next 3 months. So if I do poorly, if I legitimately do horribly, my business will still grow by 30% in the next 3 months. But in all honesty, there's no reason for me to lowball myself that badly. All right, because I should not be lowballing myself that badly either. Realistically, my business is growing by about 20% a month. Realistically, all right. And because you have to understand, but that's effectively what it looks like. And and along the way, right, because I've always said that the whole idea of money, in terms of a realistic sense, the only thing that I think about when it comes to money is where should I invest my money. I don't think about going on magical journeys. I don't think about going on delusional nothing. Legitimately, I don't think about, oh my God, what if I threw a Hail Mary into the middle of nowhere? The only thing that I think about when it comes to money is where should I invest my money? And if I want to buy anything, I can legitimately already just buy it. It doesn't matter. In all honesty, it does not matter, all right? I can already buy it. Anything on the entire planet, short of being an idiot, I can already buy it. and like the ultra wealthy stuff. I cannot buy that stuff. I don't make enough money to buy that stuff yet. But anything else, I can already buy it. If we're talking about food, if we're talking about a car, if we're talking about whatever, I can already buy it. All right, granted that I don't become an idiot, I can already buy it. So there's no reason for me to even think about buying stuff, because I can already buy. If I legitimately feel like even just the smallest sliver of buying it, I'll just buy it. I don't go out of my way to look for things to buy. All right, like me, whatever. I feel like buying this, and I just whatever. I feel like buying this T-shirt, I buy it. I feel like buying these pants, I buy it. I feel like buying this food, I buy it. I feel like buying this drink, I buy it. I gotta pay for my bills, I just pay for everything. And then my major focus for my money becomes growing my business. All right, that's the major focus of my money, is to grow my business. Because when I grow my business, and just to put, and I've been speaking about this, and I talk about this all the time. The cattle business, as it is today, right at this moment, this business makes me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Hundreds of thousands. All right, it's legitimately, that's why I focus on growing my business, right? And I'm also not going to scrape money off my business. Why would I scrape money off my business, right? But this business legitimately makes me hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Hundreds of thousands. All right, it's legitimately enough money for me. That's why I focus my efforts in terms of money. That is why I focus myself on growing my business. All right, that is why I focus myself on growing my business, because there is no reason. It's a waste of time for me to think about spending money. Like if I'm sitting there and I go, oh my God, I want to buy this thing and it's $150. Why would I waste my time thinking about it? I would just buy it. Oh my God, I need to pay for this thing. I need to pay for all of my bills, and it's $5,000, it's $4,000. Then I just pay it, right? I don't sit there and go, oh my God, well, if I do this, and I just pay it, right? Oh my God, maybe I need to put my whatever on, I just pay it. It doesn't matter. Oh my God, my tire blew up, and my air filters have gone bad. Then just replace all 4 of my tires and the air filters. Here's the $1,000. I don't care. All right, here's the $1,200. All right, it doesn't matter. I don't think about it. I just pay it. And just to put things in perspective, honest to God, complete honesty, complete transparency. This business right here, these cattle, it cost me, in terms of like the cattle feed and et cetera, the antibiotics, the cattle feed, et cetera, all right? And I mean, if we're going to include the mortgage, all right, I mean, but the whole thing is, I got that W-2, and the W-2 pays for my mortgage, and and I did that because ultimately I this cattle business is already effectively running at optimal efficiency. There's no reason for I spend about 3 or 4 hours working on it in the morning, and then I spend about 3 or 4 hours working on it in the evening, right? This cattle business, I put the 50 60 hours that I put into this business. I probably put about 50 or 60 hours into this business, and that's enough time for me to do everything that I need. All right, I don't need to put any more than 60 hours into this business. And so, I spend about 40 hours on a W-2. All right, because there's no, I don't need to spend any more time on this business. All right, I spend 60 hours on this business, and that's enough for me to do whatever I need to do. All right, I spend about 55, 60 hours a week on this business, and that's effectively enough time for me to do everything. If my animals need medication, I give them medication. I give them all their food. I take a look at the business plan. I take a look at the accounts. I take a look at the balance sheet. I take a look at what needs to get done. That effectively takes me about 55 or 60 hours a week. I go and buy new animals, et cetera, et cetera. And, there's no reason for me to spend any more time than that because, and then I spend 40 hours at a W-2. And then, but when we talk about like how much money did I spend on this business, right? And just to put things in perspective, even if we included all of that stuff, even if we included all of that, here's the thing. I would actually bet that this business makes me over $40,000. And this is also what I mean by substantially more than 30 grand. This business will make me over 40 grand in the next 30 days, all right? This business will make me over 40 grand in the next 3 days. Or not the next 3, over the next 30. It will make me over 40 grand. All right, and in terms of antibiotics, in terms of I legitimately spent less than $1,000 on this business in the last month and a half. All right, the last time I really bought anything major for this business was when I went and I purchased the feed. Right, I purchased that feed. It was $2,100, $2,200, and I purchased the feed about a month and a half ago, just over a month and a half ago. And after that, I have legitimately spent like less than like $500 on this business, less than $1,000 on this business. And just to put things in perspective for the amount of money that I have put into this business and how much money I will get out of it, over the next 30 days, I would bet that I make over 40 grand. What am I going to do with the money, right? Grow my business. My business, if I just take the money that I make from the business and put it back into the business, my business grows by about 20% a month. If we lowball it, 15 to 20% compounding every month. Then you also have to include the fact that I actually do use leverage. Now, when you include the fact that I use leverage, right? I mean, we're talking about 25 to 30% compounding growth every month. Something like that. All right. And what does that look like? If I legitimately took the money that I was making in this business and I put the money back into my business and I did not use any leverage. All right. If I did not even use any leverage, I just took the money that I have in the business right now and I reinvested the money back into my business. By the end of the year, I would have about 150 cattle. I would have grown my business by about 300%. Just by taking the money. But you also have to, it would be about 250%. All right, because let's just because I don't want to say it'll be about 250%. I will have grown my business by about 250% between now and the end of the year by just taking the money that I make in the business and putting it back into the business. That's another way to look at it. All right, and this is also and it all ties together, right? I mean, if I was legitimately going to go and spend that money, right, instead of growing my business, let's just say I decided that, you know what, I'm not going to grow my business. I'm just going to go and spend money. I'm just going to go and, whatever. I'm actually just going to go and be an idiot, right? I would have to buy like 3 Lamborghinis by the end of the year. All right, I would have to buy like 2 Lamborghinis by the end of the year. That's also why I don't go out of my way to spend money, because it's practically a waste of time. Spending money is practically a waste of time and a waste of effort. If you're sitting there looking at all the things that you can buy, oh my God, I want to buy this t-shirt. I want to buy this. I want to buy this car. I want to buy this house. Right? I mean, you should, think about, I want to buy this stock. Right? I want to buy this investment. I think about that. And you can think whatever you want. I mean, it's whatever, it's a free country. You can think whatever you want. But I'm just saying, consider that as a possible reality. Think about, I want to buy this investment. I want to buy this stock. All right, think about that. Just consider it. All right, because, in terms of like what I have seen with my life, thinking about spending money is a waste of time, and it is a waste of effort. The only thing that I think about is where to invest my money. That's it. What kind of a return can I get? That's it. All right, because when it comes to spending money, and just to put things in perspective, the amount of money that I am legitimately telling you the truth. I am speaking the truth. I'm not lying about it. I legitimately make enough money in my backyard running commercial cattle to buy anything on the entire planet. Just about. I legitimately do so well on this backyard by myself that I actually outperformed the commercial average. All right, that's what you're looking at. When you take a look at what I do, when you take a look at how I run my business, I effectively make drastically more money than the entire planet. Just about. Effectively borderline everybody by a massive margin. And just to put things in perspective, if I were to just take the money that I make in my business, if I were to just take the money that I make in this business and reinvest it back into my business, if that was all I did, I would grow my business by over 250% between now and the end of the year. Over 250%. All right, it would be like 200. Let's just say over 200% to make it, whatever. To make it lowball it. Over 200%. And just to put things in perspective, to go to 200%, I would effectively need 100 cattle. If I ran 100 cattle, I would have effectively grown my business by 200%. I will do more than that by just taking the money that I make in this business and putting it back into my business. All right. And I've already, and I understand, right? I've taken a look at it. I understand it is what it is. All right, it is what it is, but that's effectively how I see it. I legitimately do not spend any money I don't spend, not any money. I don't spend any time thinking about spending money. Oh my God, I want to buy this t-shirt. Oh my God, I want to buy these curtains. Oh my God, I want to buy this whatever. Buy this piece of furniture. Oh my God, I want to buy this. I just buy it. If I legitimately want it, even whatever, I just buy it. The rest, in terms of what I think about when it comes to money, is where to invest my money. That's it. I legitimately spend all of my time in terms of monetary considerations because, you have to understand. Here's the thing. Here is the reality perspective of the whole situation. People think about money all the time. Everybody does. All right. Because effectively, everybody thinks about not spending. Everybody thinks about money all the time. All right, but most people, when it comes to thinking about money, it's effectively, you're in a situation where you are in denial, right? I mean, that's very possible. You're in denial, right? Making money was too hard, and you have effectively quiet quit. You've effectively put yourself in a situation where you are, maybe you're even leveraged to the eyeballs, right? You're spending every dollar that you make. That's another way to think about money all the time. You spend every dollar that you make. I mean, this was not an accident, right? I mean, if you're spending every dollar that you make, then that's not an accident. I mean, you have built your financials to effectively do that, right? So you're thinking about money all the time as well, right? And, it's like learn to, you have to, just think about the possibility of rewiring your brain. Rewire the way you think about money. Instead of thinking about buying your little thing, right? Oh my God, I went and bought myself a little toy. I went and bought myself whatever. Think about buying investments. Think about buying investments. And when you think about buying an investment, just consider this, all right? Think about buying investments. Understand that there are things on this planet that if you put money into it, you could get your money back because you are purchasing this said thing at its value, right? The value that the asset has is the value of the asset. You are trading your money for an asset. All right, and this asset, the reason that you're purchasing it is to produce you a return. And it's a store of equity. If the appraisal value of the asset goes up, you do not have to pay taxes on that appreciation, granted that you do not liquidate your asset and pay yourself. All right? That's the big idea. That, all right, just understand that, that's how I think about money. I legitimately don't think about spending money ever at all. Oh my God, I want to buy this and I want to buy that and I want to buy this and I don't think about that. The only thing that I think about is where to invest my capital. That's it. And when I show you my business, when I show you this business, you need to understand that I am giving you my real life numbers, all right? Don't go and ask somebody who has no idea what they're doing, because if in reality, they will even give you the wrong information. They will, all right? You will get a lot of wrong information. If you legitimately want to figure out how to do something, it's not just farming, it's whatever. If you want to learn about stocks, then go and ask somebody who knows about stocks. Don't ask somebody who legitimately has no idea, because they'll probably give you the wrong information. I've always said that when you have poor people, there's a reason that they're poor. And it's not a good reason. It's not like because they were a good person and because they were it's not like because you have a good person that they're poor. There's a reason that they're poor. Not broke, but legitimately poor. If you're broke, it doesn't matter. Because if you're legitimately looking to do better for yourself and you're legitimately looking to, go and improve your financial situation and, build a better world and utilize capital to do good things. And if you're legitimately looking to do that, then that's good, right? It doesn't matter how much, but there is no correlation between money and good people. There is no correlation between money and bad people. All right. You have plenty of poor people that are borderline pathetic, moronic losers that are bad people. Right. And then you also have rich people that are, they may not be a good person, but they're not a bad person. I mean, you just got yourself a person. Right. I mean, it's whatever. Right. And you don't have to be poor to be a good person. And rich people are not bad people. All right, if you legitimately think that all rich people are bad people, you're an idiot. Because there are a lot of poor people that are pathetically bad as well. All right? It happens all the time. All right, but just consider that. And and just to put, and I'm not lying about it. I'm legitimately speaking the truth. Over the next 30 days, I will make over 40 grand. This business will make me over $40,000. And I will have spent less than $1,000 on this business over the last 45 days. Well, as of today, I have spent less than $1,000 in the last 45 days. And in the next 20 days, in the next 25 days, I will make over 40,000. All right, and when I talk about my business all the time, this is exactly how I run my business, right? What am I going to do with the money? Grow my business. I would be willing to bet that I grow my business by over 200%, maybe even over 250% by the end of this year. All right, I actually did it. And that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.